Good. Okay. Well, I would like to welcome everybody to our 7th in our series of World KAMISHIBAI Forum. We are so fortunate today to have presenters from Slovenia, where KAMISHIBAI has really taken off in so many exciting ways. I do want to remind people to put your questions in the Q&A. So we'll keep track of your questions as we go along. And try to get to all of them. And I would like to share screen so I can introduce our guests today properly. Let me just get this started. So first of all, I want to remind people where Slovenia is on the map of Europe. And I was so fortunate to visit. It's an absolutely beautiful country. So I recommend that people visit. And today we have a wonderful guest, Jelena, Sitar, Cvetko, and Igor Cvetko from Ljubljana. And they made such incredible presentations and video. So I hope that if you haven't had a chance to see them, that you will see them after this webinar. And as I said, I was very fortunate to meet Jelena and Igor in person in 2018 when they invited me to the Art of KAMISHIBAI, the Word of the Image and the Image of the Word, which was a sort of scientific symposium. And there were many people, some familiar faces here. You will see Bob Eisenstadt, who was one of the presenters recently in our webinar last month, actually. And also people from Japan, from Ikaja and Doshinsha came. I think a large group of about 10 or 11 people came from 15. Japan as well. Yeah. And after that, I had the great pleasure of interviewing Jelena and Igor for a spotlight on the KAMISHIBAI for Kids website. So I hope that you take a moment to read that interview as well. In addition to the KAMISHIBAI manual that was mentioned in the video, I actually have here, they gave me as a gift, the manual about shadow theater from a detective's point of view, also about lullabies and finger puppets, as you saw in the video, and Slovenian lullabies and games. So Igor and Jelena have many other publications beyond their work with KAMISHIBAI. So I'll stop share, and I know that we have a lot to talk about today, so I want to get right into the interview. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up, first of all, was for anybody who was in our webinar last month, one of the distinctions that's mentioned a lot in Japan as well as abroad is this difference between kyoiku, or educational KAMISHIBAI, and gaito KAMISHIBAI, that's supposed to be more entertaining, the street performance art. But what I really love about your video is that you bring in the dimension of KAMISHIBAI as an art form. And I think that that's something that we can talk about more today, but it's something I really have noticed in Europe, and especially with puppeteers who come into the KAMISHIBAI world, that it is really taken seriously as an art form in the same way that puppetry is in Europe and elsewhere. So one of the first questions we had was, as you show in your video, many elements of KAMISHIBAI have things in common with puppetry, but we wanted to know what elements does KAMISHIBAI have that puppetry may not, and vice versa.
Yeah, maybe first we understand puppetry as the art of animation, and it is the making not a live material in life. So that's what's important, is that we bring life to the material. And as we think, of course, we don't think that puppet theater is just Punch and Judy. We think puppet can be everything. It can be also, it is a symbol. It can be a material. It can be fabric. It can be paper. It can be clay, whatever. It also can be just light or whatever. It can be object. So the puppetry is quite wide area of investigation of theater, and of course deals all the time deals with the material. And if we think that the puppet is by a being with, in fact, let's say two heads and one heart, it's the being of two and one at the same time, and the one is the puppet and the other is puppeteer, then we have, in fact, a special being on the stage, which is very, very interesting because it has a very rich internal life. So if we think about KAMISHIBAI in the similar way that we have the place of the story, which is in the paper and in the pictures and communicates as a picture, as material, and we have a puppeteer, KAMISHIBAI now, who is introducing the story, who is interpreting, who is giving life to the pictures. Then we have a situation which can be not similar, but it has to be something. They have to have something in common, we think, and I think that is the way how we started to investigate also KAMISHIBAI. But of course, we learned from the puppetry that we have to treat the material seriously if we want, and honestly, if we want that material gives us, turns us back that how to say, dignity. And that maybe we did the same thing we did with KAMISHIBAI. So maybe I was not talking what they have. What's the difference? I try to find the way how to cooperate, how to, kako se reče, primerjati.
Compare.
Yeah, compare the things, and it is it's a special view which can be useful for our work.
Yeah, I think that the people who come to KAMISHIBAI from puppetry and the people who come from, say, cartooning, or if you're a teacher, and they're every way that you come into KAMISHIBAI, you really bring something different out of it. So that really interests me, how the your orientation can change the way that you perform it. And I do want to say that Laura Gutmann, who I hope is in our audience from Argentina, contacted us earlier, and she's also a puppeteer and really appreciated what you have to offer. And I would like to say also that Bunchan, our first performer, is also a puppeteer. So even within Japan, I think puppeteers bring something different to their performance of KAMISHIBAI.
Tara, within this analogy, Jelena said 2 person and 1 heart.
Yeah.
Maybe the main difference is that KAMISHIBAI is 1 person and 1 heart. And then everything, from this person and from this heart goes into a butai. And that's where all the energy concentrates, just 1 person and 1 heart. I would say this analogy is an interesting one.
Yes.
So that sort of follows into our next question, which was, how do you choose stories that are appropriate, you feel, to KAMISHIBAI, or that make a good KAMISHIBAI, as opposed to maybe finger puppets or other media?
We are doing KAMISHIBAI for many, many years now. I mean, people in Slovenia. from
2013.
2013,
That's many years.
but not too many years. Yes. And I would say that we did some kamishibais, especially on the beginning, that were much too long for a public to observe it, good. So that classical Japanese, the number of pictures, like 13, 15, up to 16, maybe even sometimes even more, is a form that is experienced in Slovenia too as the best form, in fact. But we also, we have to depend on the story, and the story must be in fact in one part, not very complicated. The story must be something that you tell from yourself to the public, and public then, I mean, the audience then accepts this your kamishibai. I mean, what you did and what you prepared for them, they accept it in one piece, and so that even shorter kamishibais, like 7, 8 pages, sometimes are great, I would say, from my own experience. Then there has to be a story that's not very complicated. There must be a story that is differentiated enough that you can do a good row of pictures, so that these pictures that you start doing for kamishibai must be made that way that one picture goes into another one, so that one picture follow another one, and there is never is just one picture, because there must be one picture before, and then the picture that is in butai, inside, I mean on the screen, and then another one must be also related to the former one. So
yeah, I think you make a really important distinction there, because kamishibai is about the transitions from one part to another, and that's different from a puppet show where you have different separate puppets.
Also, especially different from illustrations, for example.
Right.
Yeah, maybe if we say
Picture book.
what you saw in our presentations, we try to find the stories which are very different one from another. There are songs, there are folk stories, there are stories there is even lyric poetry, there is saying story, and so on. So that in fact, there is no limitation what you can do in kamishibai. You can do everything. I think the most important thing is that story, that problem which brings the story, borders you. I think that's so important, that when you have to know that when you will present the story, you will present the word as you understand it.
Yeah.
As you understand yourself, that you understand the word, and this is the base for making good tezukuri theater. Because if you go out from your interest, it doesn't have sense to do a very beautiful story in all senses, but if this story doesn't has intrigate you, it's not the right story for you.
Right.
And because we all are very different, we also of course choose the different stories. Folk stories are very nice because they are clean, as we would say. We say in Slovenia we have a proverb: the water falling over 7 stones is clean. And if you think that the story which is narrated from generation to generation becomes clean. They are is the same thing as dead stones. So it is already a form which has nothing too much. It's a sort of design, and
Yeah.
it's a sort, yeah. And we need something like that for our KAMISHIBAI, because we have to have a clean story, let's say, in a way.
I can give you an example. For example, Jelena said the story must come from your inside out. Jure Engelsberger, you maybe saw his Panther of Rainer Maria Rilke story. It is a typical story, you know, that came from Jure's insight at that moment, because, you know, Jerza and Jure had two girls, you know, and they were at home for 3 years, in fact, because they were, you know, these two girls were born in 1 year after another, and two small girls, and you know, it was so tense atmosphere in that house, very lovable, very very intense atmosphere. And that, you know, Rilke's poem about Panther in the cage, you know, how he's observing the public that is coming to see him in a zoo, you know, and he can watch outside world just through the bars of the cage, you know. And that's why this KAMISHIBAI was so strong, and people really felt, you know, that it is a story of him, of Jure, you know, in the last 3 years.
Jure said, Jure is an artist, and of course he has to work. And of course, if you have two babies in home, it's difficult to be an artist at the same time. So it was that big art. It was his Panther who was waiting for a moment when he will be free. But of course, they are such a nice family. They are so connected one to another that it was not difficult to father and to mother, to parents, to of course dedicate that time for their girls, their babies. But if there is another way of your identity, the part which of course has to become free in one moment, and that we all felt yes, it is that Panther here, that big force, which makes to be.
Tara, excuse
And
me,
this home
we have
was-
some questions.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get to the questions. I just wanted to say that you mentioned tezukuri KAMISHIBAI, so I just wanted to define for participants that you're talking mainly about handmade KAMISHIBAI, and that's the focus of your video as well. We have a question from Sherilyn Orbach, who I'm sure you remember.
Oh, hello, Charlene, if you're here.
Nice to see you. And of course, she remembers visiting, as do I, the beautiful places you took us to, and you were performing KAMISHIBAI in various places, both inside and outside. So her question is, how does the setting affect a KAMISHIBAI performance? Do you as a performer feel differently about the performance depending on where you are performing? And when you're creating a KAMISHIBAI, do you think about an ideal space for its performance?
I wouldn't say so, because, you know, whenever I start doing KAMISHIBAI, I must have a theme that really touches me. I must have a theme that I'm doing, you know, behind my table, and it is quite different from, you know, from thinking about where, or I am going to show it on some festival or on some other place, you know. At that time, I don't think about how to present it, not how, but where to present it. I always know how will I present it, but not for who I will present it, you know.
Ja, če imaš za odrasle že, ne?
Ja, tudi, seveda. Of course, if you do for children, it's something quite different than if you start the theme for the adults.
I have experience with Gaito Kamishibai also. We tried, some of us also tried Gaito Kamishibai. There is important the situation in which you perform, of course. You dress yourself differently. We never use costumes for Kamishibai. We don't use that. But when you go to the street, you have to be you have to differ from the people who are passing by. So you have to. I have a little hat and some flowers on my robe, so on my dress. So it's different. But in fact, also repertoire has to be absolutely different. Short things,
Yes.
riddles, open, how to say, interactive performances and so on. And of course, inside, when we have concentrated audience, more sophisticated, there you go to intimacy, to things. But when we start, we usually don't think about that.
Yeah, and I think also the story changes according to the setting too. Not just that you change the story, but each
Of
time
course.
you tell it. Yeah. So this brings up a question. You mentioned Kyokan, which is a Japanese term, of course, for experiencing feelings together with the audience, and it's a term that's often used in Japan, connected with Kamishibai. But we were wondering, do you feel a different sense of Kyokan when you're performing puppetry, say, from when you're doing Kamishibai? Is there a difference?
It is different. In fact, Kyokan, it has to be achieved in every theater, every good theater performance. I think without that communication, with that feelings we share at that moment, we lost the chance if we come to the people with a performance. But when we communicate in the theater, we communicate from the role. We are someone else. But when we are telling the Kamishibai story, we are personal. We are not private, we are personal. So we do it as we understand. We share our sympathies with the good ones, with the bad ones, with the good guys, with the bad characters, with everyone. We have to be, let's say, half of our foot outside of the story, so we can have overview the situation. I think that is very important. But we tell the story as we feel it, as we understand it, as a statement. And this is the difference. In Kamishibai, we saw more tears as on puppet theaters, especially when we have memoir performance, for example. Yeah, Usti?
Yeah. I think it gets to the first question we had. See, in puppetry, lots of energy is around, two persons and one heart. Energy goes like that first stage, and that energy from the stage goes to the public and comes back. Of course, Kyokan is present. But in Kamishibai, one person and one heart goes directly, to the people, to the audience. And that energy that comes from one person and from one heart then start to circle around. And whenever it gets to the public, public accepts it and then put some of their understanding and love and everything that goes on with the story into that energy, and the energy goes back to the Kamishibaya, performer Kamishibaya. And then this energy is stronger than before, and all the time, you
Yeah.
know, that energy goes around and around, and Kyokan is growing up, and at the end, the end is like in a good symphony of Mahler, for example. The last few bars are, you know, are most important for the whole symphony.
Well, I think I'd like to move on a little bit to another question, and I think these are kind of related questions. So you mentioned that Kamishibai is different because of the transitions. There's movement from one card to the next.
Yes, yes.
And so one of our questions was about what kinds of animation you like to use in Kamishibai. And then we had a question from Laura Gutmann about Kamishibai and folktales again. And that's a question I have. I mean, not all folktales have the kind of animation and movement that make them into good Kamishibai stories. So maybe we can combine those questions. What kinds of folktales do you find work well with Kamishibai, and what kinds of animation do you would you recommend or do you like to use in your Kamishibai stories?
I'm not sure if I understand animation in the same way as you, because I'm a puppeteer. But I feel that, in fact, we animate in the puppet theater, we animate the puppet. But in Kamishibai, we animate the story. We animate it, we make it move, we make it run. And this is maybe interesting because it's connected with a movie, with film. Now, and there is also the word animation. And it's close. Kamishibai also deals with that sort of animation. But this is in fact, how to say, there are different sorts of animation, but they all are connected in a way. And we animate it in the way that we do the the relationships. We make the relationships between the pictures, the situations, the scenography, and so on. So we all the time develop a sort of relationship, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned when we talked about it before that with Kamishibai, you can't just have the same scene forever and a lot of narration because people get bored with
of course
some movement of the cards, right? So that's the kind of animation that I was thinking of. So is there a type of animation or way of moving the cards that you particularly like when you're developing your stories or think about?
Of course, you know, the animation depends on the story and how you program picture after picture. But I would say that a very interesting thing is distinction between movie, film, and Kamishibai. In film, you know, all actions go in connecting way, so that, you know, 24 pictures on a second makes, you know, the movement, for example, that goes
smoothly, yeah.
Smoothly, and it gives you it gives you a feeling of life. But in Kamishibai, something very different happens. You have picture after picture, you know, and that picture stays presented to the public for a few seconds, for a primer, or maybe even longer. And, you know, people must be connected to the picture quite differently than in you know, observing the movie, because you know, the movie shows everything, but the picture, there is a time consumed in a picture, you know, not in the movie. And the movie time goes like in reality, in fact. But from Kamishibai, you have time that is already put into a picture, and through showing, you know, picture after picture, you must you must get the effect of moving in time. The story must get moving in time. And if you do this with a picture, and picture is, you know, we have two type of arts, in fact. It's time art and space art. Time art is like music and theater and film, that everything goes through time. And at the end of the symphony, or at the end of the film, you get the idea of the wholeness. But in KAMISHIBAI, you know, you have not time, because picture is just space. It's space type of art, you know. And if this space type of art is also also drawn on the way that this space art is transformed into a kind of a time art, then it gets very, very interesting because of that, you know. And if you follow this principle, you really can get, you know, the feeling of like in a movie, like that the whole story goes through time. Also, you have some separate spatial
right. I think we would say, like, you're taking still images and making them move through time.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this might be a nice place for you to show some of your stages and how you achieve movement differently because of the way you've designed your stages. We were talking about that before, with movement either side of the
Igor goes to prepare the stages. I would just add something on the theme before. I think what is difference between the movie and the KAMISHIBAI is that we have framing and of course the connecting, the editing, and the editing is different because when what the movie hides, it's how the pictures are put together. And in fact, that's one of the most important tools in KAMISHIBAI, because there is when one picture is leaving and the other's coming, then the audience has a chance to feel that hole, that gate.
right,
That gap. Mind the gap. Yes.
Very good. Yeah. Here is what I have a big one, a regular one. Boom point. I have a big one here, and I prepared a small one here, so to show it a little bit easier, so that the whole one goes here. It has, of course, three openings, 3 doors, like this. You see? And it has the opening on this side, so that we can pull pictures up here, and on that side too.
right.
So that sometimes pictures go, you pull pictures on one side and sometimes on the other side. You can do that. Usually we do all the performance in one direction, almost, also pulling it out. But for some special effects, like dramaturgic
Reasons, yes.
Yeah, for dramaturgic reasons, sometimes it's very good, you know, to pull.
Change the direction.
To change directions. As I explained before, we had the Orpheus, old Greek story, and when Orpheus was on Earth, you know, the story went in one direction, and when he went underground, then at that moment, the lady that did that story, Vesna, our friend from
Divac.
Ne? Oh, yeah, from Divac, of course, yeah. She then pulled, started to pull the pictures on the other side. And it was a tremendous effect, so that people, if you just went into one direction, it wouldn't be half as interesting as it was in this performance.
So
Yeah, I think it's hard to make any fast rules because every story kind of demands
Exactly.
a different kind of
Exactly.
performance. And
you
that's
develop
Mhm.
you develop rules at the beginning of the story. So if you start to pull the stories in, let's say, classical Japanese, from the classical Japanese side, then after two movements, the audience expects the third one. And if you start, and they forget that you, in fact, are doing this. And if you do it in the European, in the Western way, as we read in our direction, so it is the opposite situation, and the people just accept the way how you play the game. And it's a question, when you change the rules in the middle of the story, then they are very alert. What happened now? And that is the reason that we have, of course, have a good reason that we explain them why we did that. And they say, oh, yes. And that's good. Yeah.
Just to
It
make
was a good
clear,
effect, they say.
yeah, I think to make clear to the audience, the story of Orpheus, of course, is when he goes down to the underworld. So you were saying that the cards get pulled out in one direction as he's going down, and then another as he's coming out, or depending on whether he's on Earth or in the underworld, right? Yeah. So let me just see what questions we have coming in. I know that Jelena also has a stage where you can pull the cards up, so that gives yet another.
Yeah. Well, if Irena is here, she's the lady who does the story with the pullet. Then she even has more radical solution. I have the top this hole.
Opening also.
So I can also pull something if there is a special moment. There's very seldom, but we also can use this way. Irena has the stage without those two parts. So it's connected down.
I have one too.
You have one too? I didn't know even that he has one too. So she can offer, she can put it wherever, in which direction she wants. She also uses it very seldom, but it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's my old stage, you see, opening here, opening on the other side, and opening up here too, you see? So I can pull the whole picture up also, you see?
Yeah, it's great to think about how to work within the form sometimes, but then sometimes how to break out of it. So I'm sure that the audience appreciates some of these innovations.
Yeah, freedom is also responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we use it for special effects. It is when we have seminars, and when we put to our seminarists that basic rules, then we always say try to
Forget.
Yes, try to pull pictures just in one direction through the whole story.
Well, I think sometimes it's important to have the rules so that you know when to break them, right?
Absolutely.
You cannot break them if you don't know them.
Yeah.
That's so good. Maybe just something about the stages. If you were watching the number 2 collage, Yeah, you will see that that everybody has a stage which is different.
Mhm.
Is also something which is very important. We
Yeah.
have the stages which are personalized. So everybody has something with his stage, and it's mine. For
Right.
example, mine. For example, we were in Mexico, Yerza and me, and my stage is really very heavy, but I love him. It was I was carrying it to the other part of the world. Doesn't matter, but I said this is my stage. So
But Jelena is always carrying something. You know, her back is, I think, 20 pounds the heavy for sure.
Well, actually, that's the exciting thing when you go to Japan to the tezukuri or handmade kamishibai festivals there as well, that there's just a big variety of stages because people create their own to go with the stories that they create.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think that is the joy of making your own stories and stages. But one of the things that I think I certainly, and I know Donna, have been so impressed by how you've managed to make this a countrywide effort. And so we had some questions just about what is it about Slovenian schools? Like, what is the art program like in the schools that allows you to make this into such a general project for everybody? Is art compulsory? Can you tell us a little bit about how you've gotten it into the school system?
You know, it used to be even richer. Maybe some 20, 25 years ago, all schools, it's about 10,000, it's about 1,000 schools, grammar schools in Slovenia, a little bit more, maybe 1,200. And every school at that time had its own puppet group, its own choir, for sure, drama group, you know, a drama group with the students. I mean, with the kids that tried to that were involved into this. Then and also some instrumental group, you know. I was teaching for 10 years in school, grammar school, in my old days, and we also had in one school everything and of course chess and bicycles and all things, other things, but puppetry and drama was almost obliged, you know, for every school 25-30 years ago. And you know, at the time of our socialism, the schools really had rich programs on culture, and today it's quite different. But the tradition from these old times are still quite alive, you know, quite alive still. And you asked for schools and kindergartens. We have many seminars now in Slovenia, at least us, Jelena and I. We are doing at least 4 or 5 seminars a year, you know, in schools, where come 25, even 30. We also had some 50 people, you know, that attend these seminars in schools or kindergartens even, maybe even more. So that, you know, we get together 4 times, for example, for 4 weeks, one after the another. And after three of our meetings, they start to think about the kamishibai that they will do for the final day of our seminar. And that final day is also, you know, an analysis of what they have done after four meetings in that time, and you know, the whole school or the whole group of these seminars, at the end they have quite a good collection of kamishibais that they can use among themselves, and it goes around the school or around kindergartens, you know, all the time, because it's a collective work of this group that attended seminar.
No, that's really
Yeah.
fabulous. Yeah.
I don't know if this was exactly the question. Tara?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the question is how the Kamishibai is integrated in the schooling and in the culture and so on. And I think that the Kamishibai, in fact, is not on a special programs. There is a special subject arts, which is by some teachers also, which includes some teachers also Kamishibai, but it is integrated through the interest of the teachers. And teachers are quite well educated, slowly and slowly and slowly, more and more. We try our best. Igor and me, and there are our colleagues who also do this work. And also we teach them the faculty. So we present 2 generations, 7 generations already of students. They come with knowledge about Kamishibai. So pedagogical faculty. My students for the kindergartens, teachers of the kindergartens and of the schools. So something is happening here. But this is one view. This is the view of the educational Kamishibai, where Kamishibai is presented is used as a tool for teaching without any artistic aspirations. And there is another which is as a creative. Also creative task for the children, for the pupils, for the students. So these are 2 ways how it is used at school. And of course, it's a tool of the teacher to explain certain stories or certain themes which are not artistic also. And this is the maybe the most usual way, which is the same as all the Europe and probably all the world. But there is what is different. It's that we think that it's possible to apply an art to the school or wherever if you don't make a definition of that art. You have to have art that it can be applied. So we really work hard for the Kamishibai in all that, let's say, popularity and all that big number of Kamishibai performances in Slovenia, which is all over the country. We really work hard for the peak of this our movement, let's say, for the artistic production. And we really take care for those people who want to do arts. And you have here some examples in our presentations. There are more, of course, and in this short time we couldn't show everyone who deserves to be in that of course presentations.
Collage.
Yeah, so we are sorry for all those who are really good in the arts and they are not present in that presentation. But you know, we had just 1 week, even not 1 week to make it. Yes.
Sure, we'll have other opportunities.
Yes.
I'm afraid we are running out of time. I know we could go on for many more hours. You just have so many wonderful ideas, and there were many other questions I had. So hopefully we can continue this again at some other point. But I did want to say that I've been to like Mino in Japan, where there have been for decades people performing their own tezukuri handmade kamishibai, and they've created a culture much in the way that you have, but it's in Japan even, it's just in pockets. So I'm very impressed by how you seem to have sort of a countrywide development of this culture. And I look forward, I know Donna and I've talked about this, we look forward to seeing where you take it in the future. It just seems so very vibrant, and so that's wonderful. You have a lot of people, you should check the chat, who are saying hello to you, and many of them from Slovenia who know you.
Oh, really?
Take a look at the bottom there. And we want to thank everybody who came today. And
Oh, Monica. Experience.
need to just let everybody know that our next webinar will be back at our usual time, and it will be with people from Australia. So again, we will be at 7:30. But I hope that people from Europe were able to be more comfortable in participating this time. So I'd like to thank Jelena and Igor for all your wonderful videos and so much information there, and direct people to see them if they haven't, because it's just very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, WFK. And we were very pleased to take a part in your presentations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And we were not alone. We are in fact presenting the Slovenian KAMISHIBAI. So there are many people who are here with us, and they would deserve to be here.
Yeah, well, we hope to do another incarnation of this somewhat differently, as we discussed the last time we got together. And I think we mentioned talking about different themes like healing, and so there are so many different ways that we would certainly call upon you and other people who haven't been showcased yet to have an opportunity as well. So as our friend Margaret Eisenstadt would say, to be continued.
Thank you.
Like KAMISHIBAI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.